as well on the T-Systems platform. And then after the presentation, we will move over to a Q&A session. For the Q&A session, we have got already some questions up front. So we would like to go into details on that. And after that, we would like to pick up some questions out of the chat room. So please make use intensively also from the chat room. So now over to Magda. Maybe you can present our speakers today. I think this is one of the most interesting things beside the content, of course, but we would like to know more about our speakers. Over to you, Magda.
Excellent. Well, first of all, a warm welcome from Google Cloud. I'm so delighted to see so many of you on this call today. And thank you to Henning and T-Systems AR team to be able to partner with you on this briefing. Like Henning said, we have exciting announcement to discuss with you and exciting content. I believe this is a huge milestone for both of our companies. So we are very grateful when we appreciate your time and we delighted to have you here. I have with me wonderful speakers. On the T-Systems side, we're going to hear from Max Ahrens, who is a CTO at T-Systems. We're going to also hear from Frank Strecker, SVP Public Cloud. And on the Google side, I am joined by Daniel Holz, VP EMEA North, and I'm also joined by Wieland Holfelder, who is a VP Engineering here at Google Cloud. So let's just jump in. Frank, I would love to hand over to you now.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So again, Frank Strecker, I'm running the cloud business for T-Systems, and I will do it very briefly because I think we have then a lot of time for your questions, and I assume there are a lot of questions. So first of all, the problem statement. What is the problem? So the market is growing like hell, as everybody knows. So why do we introduce a sovereign cloud? And I think we have two aspects here. We have on the one hand Google, who is providing a large cloud provider, and we have T-Systems. And we as T-Systems, we have decided to have a public cloud first strategy. So our strategy is to support our clients to move into the cloud. Yeah, and this is the strategy, and this is where we are growing. And what we are doing is observing based on customer feedback every day the market and look, is there any limitation to move into public cloud? And as we talk about an announcement in Germany on a DACH region, for sure there is a topic, and this topic is sovereign cloud, or the question, how do I deal with data and topics like that? And that's why we have decided to do something together, and we are happy to do something together with Google, because I think we have a very good answer on all these topics to move into public cloud, but with the flavor of sovereignty. And why do we see that? And what is also the topic you can see on the next page? For us, it has two dimensions. For us, it's for sure the dimension that everybody is moving into, but in two directions. One is the directions talking about business models. So new business models are based on IT, and to run and to build on IT, you need all the features and functions, all the innovations out of the big cloud platforms. And on the other hand, this is the second topic, which is currently, especially in the DACH market, is that also at scale, clients moving their legacy workloads, talk about SAP, into the public cloud. And so there is a big demand, there's a huge demand onto that. And if I have client meetings and talking about public cloud adoption, they always say, yes, it's our strategy. We want to move into, based on the fact we want to use features and functions, we want to use innovations. But there is always this discussion about data privacy. How can I convince my data privacy officer? How can I ensure that I can run my business safe? And if you would have an answer onto that, T-Systems, we would be very keen to drive this adoption in a way that it is sovereign. And this is exactly the idea we are driving here with this partnership. But this is especially also, and I assume there are some questions later on, and we want to do that in a way, from our point of view, in a very innovative and clever way. On the one hand, to have this experience of public cloud, but on the other hand, really in a way that it is fulfilling the sovereign demands of the clients. Okay, and so therefore the next page. So therefore, we have built something in a way that we can answer the question of the clients, be it to build new business models utilizing public cloud, be it to do this transformation topics. And all this discussions we have today is in a way of, yes, we want to do it as I have mentioned, but there are some different types of use cases where we can use a public cloud. Some we are very defend at the moment. If it comes especially into data of people, if it comes especially, and this also topic of this announcement, into more regulated industries like health or public sector. And therefore, to answer this discussion, and by the way, there's a typical German foil because it talks about fears and difficulties, but we talk today about solutions and opportunities. We have built up something in a way that jointly we will offer sovereign clouds, and for sure from a T-Systems Deutsche Telekom point of view, that we will harden the cloud of Google, and also on the other hand, then to support for sure the strategy of Google as well. So what is the key message of my 5 minutes? The key message is we have understand the demand of the market, we have understand the demand of our clients, and will build something together with Google that they can further drive the answer to public cloud in a sovereign way, and for sure to support our clients in a way that they can further push and drive their digitalization of their business, which is the key topic here in the market for sure. So therefore, I would like to hand over to Daniel now for the next.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Thank you a lot. So yeah, T-Systems and Google Cloud, we have been strong partners, and I'm very proud that this partnership is now moving to the next level to bring a world-class sovereign cloud solution to Germany. This announcement builds on Google's recent 1 billion euro investment into German digital future, which we just announced 3 weeks ago. So to remind us, these new developments will ensure that our enterprise customers have faster access to secure infrastructure, to smart analytics tools, and to an open platform. Particularly, we are doing 3 important things. First, we are expanding our Google Cloud region in Frankfurt to support the growing demand from our German businesses and organizations. Second, we will build a new Google Cloud region in Berlin-Brandenburg coming in 2022, which will extend our ability to meet growing demand for cloud services in the country. And finally, we announced that we are working with ENGIE Deutschland to supply 140 megawatts of carbon-free energy in Germany, which will ensure that the energy delivered to Google's German facilities will be nearly 80% carbon-free by 2022, which is an important milestone for our work towards reaching 100% carbon-free by 2030. So on the next slide, we see that we do see fantastic customer momentum in the region, as Frank also lined out, but we also see strong evolution in customer expectations when it comes to sovereignty. For many reasons, digital sovereignty has been getting more and more attention recently. The regulatory environment is related to cloud is very dynamic, and we see the overall trend in the direction of European strategic autonomy and digital sovereignty. This includes expanded European control over cloud data and software, and we see this trend in member states at the EU level and in European public-private partnerships, like, for example, the Gaia-X project. At Google Cloud, we are very much committed to making sure our products and services meet the requirements of our customers. So we are convinced that we can deliver on these apparently conflicting expectations: security, privacy, and digital sovereignty without compromising on functionality or innovation, and without unreasonable price increase. We have developed a unique approach in our view, and we designed it to avoid the pitfalls experienced by competitors in the past. We can deliver sovereign solutions while preserving the magic and the cost effectiveness of the public cloud. So we found a way to provide sovereignty while keeping the customer connected. Can we please go to the next slide? Looking at the mission statement of Google Cloud, just waiting until it builds up. Next slide, please. Is it coming? The next slide. So it should be our mission statement. Here we go. Thank you. With our mission statement at Google Cloud, we aim to accelerate every organization's ability to digitally transform through data-powered innovation with the most secure infrastructure, open platforms, industry solutions, and expertise. And we are doing that by offering the most secure infrastructure as a service, an open digital transformation platform, and industry-specific digital transformation solutions. As a cloud service provider that serves customers in a broad set of industries, ranging from customers like Deutsche Börse Group over to E.ON, Airbus, to Renault and Kaeser Compressors, just to name a few. And at the same time, as a provider that supports European public administrations, like the regional government of Veneto in Italy, to provide digital services to its citizens, we bring to the table both technological excellence as well as a deep understanding of European customers' key requirements when it comes to their digital transformation. To work successfully with organizations, both public and private, one thing is very clear. We must deliver services on their terms, aligned to their priorities and values. The next slide, please. And this is the core at what we are announcing today. With this new, let's just wait again. Okay, cloud on Europe's terms. This is at the core of what we are announcing with this new sovereign product offering. Cloud on your terms. This comes after an extensive dialogue with customers and policymakers across Europe, and we believe it sends a strong signal of our intent to partners within Europe, and it shows that it will be also the heart of our messaging. The core of the message of our campaign, Cloud on Local Terms, has resonated very well in Europe. It was widely welcomed as the right motivation and sentiment for Google Cloud to build the campaign around. A localized cloud speaks to key concerns around data security and protection, as well as digital sovereignty. And if we take a look at the next slide, we would like to meet the growing customer requirements for sovereignty, and to ease adoption of these capabilities, we need to build them directly into the cloud infrastructure that enables digital transformation. Security is a fundamental part of this, and Google Cloud offers a very strong foundation. And this foundation includes consistent controls throughout the cloud, transparency into our controls, emerging capabilities to exercise true sovereign control over data and operations in a zero-trust architecture to protect data against threats, and an operating model where we take an active stake in customer security outcomes. And with that, for more details, I would like to hand over to Max.
Thank you, Daniel. So I would like, now slides are coming back. So yeah, my name is Max. I'm the CTO for T-Systems, but I'm also the chairman of the board for GaiaX. So I have been talking to many clients and other providers about what is it, why sovereignty is actually a thing for our clients, and what does it help them when you talk about the actual effect in the operations. And the second thing is also, what is it, what makes a solution sovereign? And I think in the end, it's very simple. There are a few clients that actually have very clear legal requirements today already, from public sector to regulated industries, and they can tell you pretty exactly what they need in terms of their sovereignty needs. But there is another huge group of clients who thinks, and I think rightly so, that a sovereign solution will simply accelerate their journey towards the cloud, and with that also their digital journey. Why is that? Because many clients, when they migrate applications into the cloud or build new things into the cloud, they first have to go through a lengthy process of, is it okay to use the cloud with the data being involved, etc., etc. Or they cannot use the full power of the cloud, but rather need to kind of do some add-on, use some add-on technology in order to stay more cloud independent or separate the control. And that, if you move away those two things, many things will be implemented in the cloud much faster, and thus the digital transformation will accelerate. And that's ultimately what we want to achieve, but also what we want to achieve with Gaia X, where we want to create more transparency and more simplicity for the clients to move into the cloud. And that, with that, accelerate the digital transformation, which is the ultimate goal, right? To be able to transform our industry towards digital in a competitive level in Europe and compared to the world. So, but what does it take to have a solution which is sovereign? And I have just put some things here, which I think are the core building blocks around being able to call something sovereign. And that's obviously around, you know, access control, around identity, around the data privacy situation. I also think it's about the geopolitical location. And I do believe, although we are driving this conversation very much out of Europe, this will be a thing also in other parts of the world where, you know, every region might define the role of sovereignty for them equally. And so clients need to be aware of that this will be a topic, I think, going on in the next years. But it's also around, for instance, open source. You know, how can open source and a consistent open source strategy help you to be more sovereign? And I think we have built in our solution quite a lot of these elements based on these building blocks, and with that can ensure really true sovereignty. If you advance one slide, please, then I would like to kind of introduce the problem and then dig deeper into the solution, and also Wieland will then follow up and drive it down to the technology of the Google side. So if I look at today's options, clients usually have the choice to either go for the innovation power that comes with a global hyperscaler, with all the capabilities that you have there, all the services, and also all the ecosystem and the skill that is being built up around these ecosystems. Or the alternative is to go for a much smaller, less powerful solution, but have more control on privacy and compliance. And I think that is the ultimate problem, right? Because if you do that, you know, you put clients in front of a choice where both options will not accelerate the digital journey. It will, you know, on the right-hand side, you have a more complicated way to go, less power in the application, the platform, but you don't have these conversations that I laid out earlier. On the left-hand side, you have the power, but you have to go through the conversations, and that's exactly what we try to address with our solution, building, you know, a combination of the both by, as Daniel already pointed out, making sure the controls are built in the platform instead of kind of propped on top. Certainly, we have gone through some learnings, and I would like to, you know, on the next page, explain a little bit what are our cornerstones also based on the learnings that we had in the past. First and foremost, also a sovereign cloud is not an isolated island. You cannot have it as an isolated island because the workloads are global. And as I said already earlier, there will be sovereignty needs in different countries of the world or different regions of the world, which need to be accepted. And hence, it must be controlled locally, but part of a bigger system. It cannot be a fork of a native platform. So basically, because that will lead to a less fast delivery of the new capabilities, of the new features. So if you build a dedicated fork, you basically have the conversation with every new feature. Oh, is it now worth the investment to also bring it to this sovereign platform? No, it must be absolutely built in. Sovereignty is not a binary switch. What do I mean with that? I mean that it's not either you turn it on or off, and a client always knows, you know, I need sovereignty or I don't need it. There are different levels of sovereignty needs, and it is also depending on the industry, depending on the workload even. And so it must be basically a menu of services that you, or of options that you can play. Low financial entry barrier, Daniel already pointed that out. If the only option is to kind of buy in order to achieve sovereignty, in order to buy a full block of own capex essentially, then you hinder the innovation that usually would go into the platform by again creating a financial entry barrier. And last but not least, it is important to be able to transform the whole ecosystem around the platform onto a sovereign platform. That is tools, that is skills, all these things. And that drives the one other cornerstone with it, which is retaining the platform as cloud native as possible. Don't create things into the platform that create additional steps or additional means for the client so that his whole ecosystem and tools don't work anymore, because that will also slow down the usage of such a platform or make it more complicated. And again, that's our design target, is really accelerate the usage or the digitization journey by offering such a platform. And that were basically our key learnings, but also cornerstones when we together with Google designed what we want to build here. And I would like to hand it over to Wieland to get a little deeper into the cornerstones. As we mentioned, right, it has been announced at Digital X that we are building this partnership together. And I think Wieland will roll a little bit into the technical concepts, but also about the different roles we are having here. Wieland, over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Max. And yes, this was indeed a very special and strategic announcement that we had now almost 2 weeks ago at Digital X. And both of our CEOs were deeply involved in the preparation and also are fully committed to this partnership. And as you can see here in these statements, and just to reiterate what Max said, what we want to deliver is the best of two worlds: a public global platform, but in a secure world with like digital sovereignty built into the platform that meets the full cloud experience for the customers, basically. And also to refer back to what Daniel said, this partnership basically delivers on the promise that this is cloud on Germany's terms. And I'm really very excited about this first of its kind announcement. So next slide. Let me talk a little bit about digital sovereignty. When we actually hear the need for digital sovereignty from customers, it's often unclear what exactly digital sovereignty means to them. So what we did is we've broken it down into 3 very clear pillars. The first pillar being data sovereignty, which means customers have full control over their data, including storing and managing encryption keys outside of the cloud, providing an extra layer of control over their data through our otherwise public cloud capabilities. Operational sovereignty means that we give customers, and in this case via T-Systems, full visibility and control over the operations of our cloud. And then last but not least, there's software sovereignty, which is also often referred to as survivability, and means the protection against unforeseen catastrophic events, for example. And to reiterate on Max's points earlier with open source, we believe that software sovereignty and survivability can really only be accomplished with a modern open cloud, open source approach, and we believe that we can deliver that. And we have a long track record and have committed strongly to an open cloud, and we have based many of our core cloud services for computing and data management on open source solutions. So this is a great starting point. Next slide, please. Now let's look at data sovereignty in a bit more detail and how we can help today with data sovereignty requirements and how this partnership will actually deepen that. First of all, it's important to reiterate that Google Cloud or in Google Cloud, our customers' data is our customers' data. We never sell it or use it for advertising or for training AI models or for any other uses that are not requested by our customers. But obviously, having somebody like T-Systems to oversee that and to actually verify that this is indeed the case, or even having technical measures in place that prevent us from accessing the data in the first place, is exactly what this partnership is delivering on. So with this partnership, customers know exactly that the data is stored in Germany. The data centers are supervised by T-Systems, and T-Systems ensures that the data stays in that location, and compute happens in that location, and so on and so forth. We also have a technology we call specification, so that if we need to do an operation on the data, we actually need to request the encryption keys from T-Systems and say, hey, by the way, this is what we want to do. And can you please give us the keys to decrypt the data so we can actually do what we need to do for the customer? And T-Systems at that point has the ability to say, yes, okay, we understand, or they can say, no, we don't believe that's a justified cause. And then we just revoke access altogether. So all these capabilities make T-Systems or the customer the ultimate arbiter of access to data. And that is, I think, a very, very powerful statement and a very powerful setup. I think next slide, we can go into more details on the next aspect. The next aspect is what we call operational sovereignty. And operational sovereignty means that we give T-Systems visibility and control over our operation, and we provide transparency and inspectability and security, basically operating in what we call a zero trust model. As I noted earlier, customers can view and control the decryption operations and access to data. T-Systems can supervise it and verify everything, even so that the configurations by Google administrators or access from Google administrators. And if there's changes, for example, in our hardware or changes in our infrastructure, that is also something that T-Systems will monitor and make sure that there's auditability, and we have what we call tamper-evident cloud audit logs that provide the ability to deny unauthorized access, and so on and so forth. I think that the power here is also that we can provide local support with local administration. So we will basically guarantee that we have European support personnel, and T-Systems supervises the support personnel to make sure that they only access what they're allowed to access. But let's explore that in a little bit more detail on the next slide. This is basically the overall setup of this Trusted Partner Cloud option that we're delivering with T-Systems. We have our powerful, scalable, secure, and innovative platform on the left side. We have T-Systems as our local partner in Germany to do commercial deals, to talk to also or to actually operate the local security operations, supervise and oversee the access controls, do independent audits, the key management that I talked about together with the key access justification, and then also value-added services on top of this platform. So we're, for example, committed to work together on co-innovation topics, technical cooperation to advance the platform so that it meets the needs of our customers. And on the right side, you have the customers that could come from regulated markets or from the public sector that would then directly engage with T-Systems. Next slide, please. So here's basically the very high-level architecture diagram. And in this model, Google Cloud will continue to provide the technical platform, the software hardware stack, which is the Google Cloud platform. But then we build controls into the platform that basically allow T-Systems to manage and control the critical pieces of the infrastructure: encryption, identity, the creation of certificates, things like that, root access to our platform. And that is important because then the platform that we have will scale. The platform that we have is not a separate forked stack. It is always the public Google Cloud platform, but we built the sovereignty into the platform instead of sort of building walls around it. So next slide. Yeah, the last pillar that we have is what we call software sovereignty, and it basically speaks to two related but sort of independent requirements we've heard. One is the ability to avoid vendor lock-in, which shares some similarities with the requirements that we have, for example, in GDPR on data portability. And then also organizations want the flexibility to be able to move workloads from one provider or one set of infrastructure to another. And the use of proprietary technologies makes that, of course, very, very difficult. And therefore, we are very committed to this open cloud, open source approach. And another one is also the ability to achieve continuity of operations without relying on the cloud provider for a period of time or even permanently if that's needed. For example, if there's a natural disaster or something else or any other material event. And in order to be able to accomplish that, an open cloud, open source approach is extremely important and is something that is the only, I think, way to accomplish software sovereignty or survivability. And we already have a lot of examples and pieces of our software out there as open source. So we believe that this provides a very solid foundation. And then I think Max touched a little bit on that already, but open source has another sovereignty benefit that also needs to be considered and often is also something that the politicians are mentioning, which is the portability and the transferability of skills. If you use an open cloud approach with open source components, then everything that you do to build skills for your employees, everything that you invest in is independent of the cloud provider that you choose. And so that's certainly something that's very important. Right now, my next slide, I believe, my last slide, is to summarize our sort of sovereign cloud solutions here in a diagram. And what you can see is we basically have different levels that translate into different levels of sovereignty as well. And what is important is that we provide a full spectrum of flexible sovereignty solutions, including the general public cloud, but then also the public cloud with built-in controls that customers can manage themselves. But if you want the ultimate sovereignty, then the last two are the ones that are critical to this partnership. The trusted partner sovereign cloud, where T-Systems really operates and oversees the operations and also the data sovereignty aspects. And then a private cloud option that we're working together on, where we actually can have a off-fabric, if you will, Google Cloud stack that allows our customers to run the most critical workloads that they have. And they're basically disconnected from the Google Cloud, but run the same sort of software stack that we have in the Google Cloud. With that, let me hand it back to Max, who will provide further details on how we will deliver these sovereign cloud solutions. Thank you, and over to you, Max.
Thank you, Wieland. So all the technology and the capabilities that Wieland talked about, in the end, we will bring to market in two independent offerings, first of all. On the left-hand side, you see the sovereign cloud platform, which is the shared version with all the technology as Wieland mentioned. It is a platform which we control in terms of supervision, and we will extend it with what we call the private cloud option, which is exactly a dedicated environment for a client in a T-Systems, a customer data center, or even adjacent to the Google location inside a Google data center. And I think this is also important. I said earlier that sovereignty is not a binary switch, and it's not just like one option that meets the demands. Our model here is that clients, even clients from the public sector, they have workloads that have differences in terms of sovereignty needs. And that's why we drive, like an integrated, a hybrid model, if you like, from the private option towards the sovereign cloud platform, towards even the public cloud, as Wieland depicted it. And one of the things that makes it truly hybrid is that we can co-locate it in a Google data center, so you have basically unlimited bandwidth and super low latency between the different options. But B, also that we as T-Systems can offer even the private cloud offering in an as a service model. And I think that's, again, to my second point, low entry barriers, which is very important. So those two models we will deliver in, they are independent, but we will offer them also in kind of an integrated fashion. How will that be going forward? If you advance one slide, please. Obviously, we will develop the solution forward. As we said, as Daniel said, and Wieland said, the idea, the core of our concept is to build the controls in the very core of the stack, and that cannot happen overnight. That's why we have developed a multi-phase plan, which is based on the existing needs that we know from initiatives like Gaia and so on. We know that there are different levels that are needed when it comes to sovereignty, and we have aligned ourselves towards these. And made out a roadmap. And phase one will all be around the access control, the data localization, so you can always be sure the data resides in a certain geolocation, but also the encryption management and open source. In phase two, we will introduce the separation of identities, meaning no Googler essentially knows who the actual client is, but the identity controls will be with T-Systems. And in phase three, really full operational control is with T-Systems, meaning, for instance, all the keys, even the operational keys that are required for storing and for encryption data at rest and in transit, but also the access keys for operations are based on a root CA that is a DT root CA. And hence we are in full control as T-Systems around the access and the access to the data of the platform. And that's a roadmap because we make sure that's really built in the very low level of the platform technology. In parallel to that, we have the private option that I explained, and that will also be available already starting next year, but also develop further from there. That is basically the high level roadmap, if you like. So on the next slide, I just have two more quick things I wanted to mention. So when you look on how it's actually going, there are two elements. One is obviously the contractual relationship, and the contractual relationship is underpinned with these technologies I mentioned, from key management, so encryption controls over identity, towards all relevant controls, including all the operations of the data center. So basically, we didn't talk about the contractual relationship until now, but I think it's another very important element, because that gives you the protection ring, for instance, against legally in other regions legally totally acceptable requests to access the data, which is from a European perspective not okay. And last but not least, on the last slide, I also want to mention, I saw that point coming in the chat earlier. Obviously, we talked a lot about the data sovereignty being a baseline for many industries, and not only public sector. So we definitely don't have a public sector only focus. And that's why we have two more things that we build on top of that are that are part of our co-innovation partnership, is certainly and to make sure that this platform is certified and regulatory-wise fulfilling the demands of these industries like health or other regulated industries, but also we jointly will invest into industry-specific additions, add-ons, if you like, that will even further accelerate the usage of that cloud in these specific industries. We are focusing on obviously the core industries that T-Systems is also driving around, which is public, health, auto, and travel transport. And I think with that, we are done, if I'm not mistaken, with what we wanted to share. I just have the wrap up, important. So what's our view now? Why this is a great solution? With the partnership, we are the first in the market, and we are driving sovereign solutions to be available basically very soon, so early next year, and that is something which includes the things that I mentioned, like low entry barriers, and with that, really accelerating the transformation. Second point, we are really, with the model we displayed, we are able to deliver full sovereignty, but still give access to the global innovations. And with the co-innovation commitment that I just mentioned, we are all on the open source commitment. We are really doing a significant step forward, not only in giving a sovereign platform, but also driving sovereign innovation beyond the pure platform in the industries. And that is something that I think is very unique to the partnership of Google and T-Systems, also because Google brings in significant elements, like, for instance, the open source, and we as T-Systems bring the other element, which is the controls, etc. So that's I think what we wanted to share up front.